So whoever doesn't know me, my name is Ricardos, and I'm working in the Square for the last 6 years. So I started for helping with the agencies to manage the bookings, and then went into building the relationships with them. And then after a few years, I've been asked to move to the relocation team and work as an account manager for the relocation companies. That was my journey for the last 6 years, which I'm really happy about that. So I have my colleague Yang with me from our marketing team, who is going to ask me some questions. And yeah, let's see how it goes.
So, Ricardo, what inspires you to working in the travel industry, and how did you become a account manager?
So general traveling, it's been a part of my life since like childhood. My parents always used to say that me and my brother is growing up on wheels, because we would be traveling all around and going to see the relatives. That traveling thing has always been part of my life. Also, when I grew up and I started to go into my professional life, my first job was abroad, where, I had to find the accommodation, where to stay. I had, sorted out my flights, everything. So, that kind of gave me interest into the whole industry and how it's everything, the process and what is behind. It's not just, taking your suitcase and going out. It's always about, all the other things what's happening behind the screens, which it's not always, looks so exciting as it looks like, with all the issues behind as any other processes going on. And yeah, when I came to London, I worked in the hospitality, in the services, and then, I found the Square. And when I started at the Square, I wasn't completely sure what is the service accommodation is. 6 years ago, it wasn't that much of, a service accommodation companies going on around. And, I learned everything going through, and it's just exciting to see now, when you see on the news, for instance, yesterday I was reading about Shakira bringing up trees from Barcelona, and, it's just funny to read it, but then at the same time you're thinking what is behind, all the shipping and all the other things, what has to happen to relocate all of the life like this. So yeah, so it's just motivating me, because that's just a big part of our global life which we're having at the moment.
So what are some of the most important skills and qualities needed to be successful in this field, and how can someone develop those skills?
So I think the communication is the main thing. We're building up relationship with the clients, we're building up relationship with the suppliers, we're building relationship with our colleagues. As an account manager, you are in touch with every single department in your company. You need to know in the finance department what's going on, what is in the operations and reservations. Every single department comes into your daily life, and that's as important to have a great relationship with them as with your clients, as with your suppliers as well, because sometimes we really overthinking about the relationship with the client, and then thinking just really diminishing the importance of the relationship with the supplier, which is as important. Without our partners, without our suppliers, we wouldn't have a product which to offer to our clients, and that's as important. And obviously clients important, that's I don't have to even to say that's number one. Another skill which is really important in this role is problem solving. Problem solving is more of your preparation. So you have a knowledge of the product, of the certain situations, and you know how to deal with them, and as well just be ready for any unexpected things, because sometimes you think everything is ready, you go on the weekend and then you're receiving a call on Sunday morning, someone cannot check in Singapore, and there we go, you have to go and deal with that, and you never had that issue before. and you're learning from them. And I think what is the most important, just don't take it as a negative thing. I know that, like if you've been woken up on Sunday morning to deal with some issues in Singapore, not gonna be the happiest person at that moment, but just always think about all the experience and, what you're learning through all of that. And, you're going to use all of that knowledge for the future career experiences, and it's gonna be easier and easier to deal with every single challenge that you're coming on.
So you mentioned that you might be woken up during like weekends and something like that. So how do you usually balance your work-life balance to maintain like a good mentality?
Okay, yeah. So this is another thing that is very important for yourself, is to keep your emotional life very stable. So the daily routine is keeping on the weekends and on the weekdays at the very similar level. Don't go to the extremes where you waking up on the weekdays at 5 o'clock and then waking up on the weekends at midday, which obviously disbalance all of that thing. And I think that is like when people is saying, oh, I don't have a life balance with my work. But then the question is, what do you do on your days off? Do you actually wake up and try to be as productive as when you're working? Or are you going to spend like all your day in bed doing nothing? And then when Monday comes up, you say, oh, the weekend just passed by without even knowing it. So it's just always make sure that I am as productive on the weekdays with my work life, that I would have the same productivity on my days off. So, that's where the balance comes up. And then, about being disturbed on your time off is always, matter of the communication with your managers as well. If I've been disturbed too much and, something that really disbalanced my personal life, you just communicate with your manager and see, whether that could be some of the calls could be directed to other teams, or that maybe you can take like an extra day off or some hours to sleep, for instance, if you've been disturbed. So it's all about the communication. I've seen in the past that some people, they get a little bit upset about something, what's going on, and they don't communicate it and they don't try to find for the solution for those problems. And that's where the issues building up. And then when you have lots of issues in one basket, it's so difficult to deal with them at once. So it's always everyone who knows me, they knows how open and direct I am, but and some of them they see negative, some of them see as a positive thing, but it's more like you never hold anything in yourself. You always, if you have something, you communicate that, find a solution, and go on.
I do think communication is the key. And speaking of which, you also mentioned client relationship. So how do you manage to build a relationship between clients and partners as you work with them both?
So I think the key thing in this one is the transparency, right? If you're going to try to build up something or not communicate it, everything was going on 100%, that's where you're going to find, disturbance in the relationship, whether that, we're going to be with the supplier or with the client. So for instance, if I'm waiting for the response from the supplier, I will call for the client and say, I have all of these options, but I'm waiting from that. What do you want to do? So, you always give the choice for the client to choose. What do they want to do it? How do they want to proceed with that? The same with the supplier, like if there are some issues going on, or, your guest comes and damage the property or something, you always try to be in those shoes of the supplier. You're collecting all information, you're collecting everything what's there, and go to the client and present it everything exactly how it is. Don't try to, mark it up and say like, oh, I kind of feeling that that's maybe not fair, or, on your side, is always you try to be in both sides. So, I think the balance in the relationship and building a great relationship in being in the middle and stay in the middle, very objective. Don't try to go on one or another side.
Okay, and can you remember any of interesting clients you've dealt with? Can you share with us some examples?
Like interesting clients in terms of challenging or?
Yeah, maybe challenging, so they can get an idea how to deal with challenging clients.
Well, I think it's the most challenged people is the most, and it's gonna sound very bad maybe, but it's uneducated, and it's not uneducated generally that they don't have knowledge about life or something. It's more about uneducated about the products where they're going into there, and that's where the challenge started at. If people get lots of travels around America, where you go there and every apartment is so spacious and they have the air conditions and all of these amenities, and when they start to travel in Europe, maybe Central Europe or north of Europe, that's where the challenge comes if the person is not educated about where they're going into, because if they will come from US and in London during the summer when suddenly now we have plus 40 degrees, but there's no air conditioners in most of the apartments, and you didn't inform that about the guest, they will feel that you didn't provide it the right product for them. Mm-hmm. But then you need to inform to them that this region is just not used of this kind of weather. So we dealing with that. We try to find the different solutions, but it's not exactly our fault. We just don't have that amenities in here.
Yeah.
The same, it was a really big case of learning for me when I started, because when I started at the Square, I used to work just for London properties, for my Square at the moment, what we call here, and yeah, it's for me was working 3 years just for London properties. So ignorant me, I thought the rest of the world works exactly the same like London. And when I started to book Europe, and I started to book Asia and Australia and the Americas, and I see all of these different things, I automatically thought that is something wrong from our side, and I was how's it going to be now? I don't know how to deal with that. And then time by time I just learned that every country, not even every country, I would say every city has their own way of working, because obviously those service accommodation communities, they are there and they're working in certain way, and they have local laws which they have to comply with, and the health and safety, every country has a different. So it's always just learning for the location, and it's never there's never a finish line for that, because again, the industry which we're working in is a very live industry, and you never know what's going to happen. Maybe today we're working in one way, and tomorrow something will happen. We will work completely upside down what we are in at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting because I know there are lots of cultural differences and living customs in different countries, and stuff like that can lead to challenges. And I remember we have a blog on our website telling people about things you can't do in Singapore.
Yeah.
And one of them is it's illegal to buy chewing gums or to chew gums. I can't really remember, but I found it really interesting.
Yeah, so it's all about that. It's again, like, some of the cases you don't even think at that moment. And when you have, your guest did something, or, what did I have another day? In America, I got the fine from the supplier that the guest took away the batteries from the smoke alarm. And there's a huge fine. And I was like, what's going on? I was like, I understand that, the smoke alarm was not in proper condition and everything, so we can warn the guest or something. And they're like, no, there's a law that we are fining the people for that.
Oh, wow.
And, again, like, you have that emotion coming in, like, where it's like rejecting, and it's like, no, like, we're not gonna communicate that to the client because it just sounds ridiculous. But then again, you have to always come back and put yourself in the properties and the local law shoes, and just go with that.
Okay, and would you say like being in this field needs to have a really good resilience, in a like emotional resilience?
Yeah, definitely. So that's where another thing, I think emotional state of your mind and your body, it's coming from two different channels. So it comes from your personal life, and then it comes from your professional. And both of them, they're mixing up, but it's always so important to understand where the source of emotion comes to. So for instance, if you're starting your day, you need to start that in the right way. So I'm just gonna give you example. A couple of years ago, I had like a really rough time, I guess like anyone else, going through the emotions and everything, and I would just wake up, probably would be late at that time, and I would already be upset, go to work, or work from home. Depends what month or day we would be at the local laws, and I would always come, and then I would get like super upset, with the clients, and I would always think, I wouldn't show that, but I would always think like, what do they ask me and everything, and then I was like, hold on, regardless, are you actually upset because a client is asking something, or are you actually upset about something else? And that's what like I started to like separate the things, and like. Now, for instance, I will never wake up like, half an hour or an hour before leaving. I always would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, have my relaxing time. So I make sure that I don't wake up in the stress. I have a nice breakfast. I, meditate or do some stretching or something. Just get body into that. And, if I have some negativities going through, like, I acknowledge them, I never would suggest people to just like block them and just like, no, you just have to pretend that you're happy. No, that's the worst, because those negative emotions will come up something. And, in the working environment, sometimes they can come up in really unfortunate moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you just have slowly into that day. And, again, it's very experimental and individual. For me, is finding out the right music or the right sounds. It doesn't have even to be a music. I found out now that if I feel like stress or anxiety before going and doing something, there is this high vibration music, which really helps you to go through that and relax it. So between tube station and going to the office, there's like 15 minutes walk. So I just use that time, just relaxing and getting into like the most positive energy and mindset once I stepped into the office. And then again, like once you're stepping into the office, there is hundreds of chances that something will go wrong. Maybe you will open your inbox and, there's like 5 of your guests doesn't have the water in their property, and you have to deal with that. Again, like the thing where you have to always learn, I think in this industry, that bad things will be happening, is, again, we're living in the life industry where anything can happen, it's the houses. The water can break, electricity can be gone, Wi-Fi can be gone, and sometimes, it's not even in your or your colleagues' control. It's more of, like a global issues. So you just have to learn to do the best what you can do, but also don't get too much into yourself. and then, you know, at the end of the day, just always learn and learn and learn how to deal with them in the future. And, you know, by saying that you have to learn and learn, it's also you have to spread your knowledge. You know, you have your new colleagues coming in, maybe who never had such a cases. And, you know, it's just whatever you have in yourself, you spread around and you're taking what other gives.
Thank you. And so, how do you ensure that your clients have a positive experience when relocating to a service department? And like, what steps do you take to address issues that arise?
Yeah. So obviously, I thought, you know, in the Square we have like the process of dealing with the issues, dealing with the inquiries, dealing with the account management things. So, you know, I try most of the time to comply with all of those steps, but also, you know, I'm just trying to put, you know, as I said before, it's all about the positivity. It's all about, you know, passing up that energy of happiness to your client. And again, you know, you will have, you know, clients affected by those emotions as well, and you will have the clients calling and shouting on you, and, you know, because they have that emotion passed from someone else. You know, if they guest didn't have a water this morning to get ready to work, obviously the guest is not going to be happy. They're going to call for your client. They're going to pass all of that negativity. And, you know, if the client didn't really have the best day in the morning, it will come up into your pot. And it's up to you where you're going to break that cycle. Are you going to pass to operation all this negativity and go, you know, shouting on them and, you know, being sarcastic or negative? Or are you just going to be like breathing in, breathing out, and just pass all of this, you know, issues with the happiness? And, you know, everyone will deal with your request better if you will pass that in the positive way rather than negative way. Yeah, and then again, like, it's more as well, don't be too excited with the client if he's not happy, because obviously, you know, I guess from everyone's experience, if we having really, really bad day and someone is jumping around happy-dolly, we will be like, oh my God, that person, can he just shut up? So obviously, you know, that's just not the way. It's always try to read who you're speaking with, and always try to calm the situation down as much as possible. You know, or, you know, like when my clients is saying something, and clients themselves saying sometimes, you know, if their guest is difficult, they're like, oh my God, this guest, she just like so challenging, and, you know, like why they just can't take things easier. And I always say for my clients, you know, yes, it is a challenging situation. Yes, you know, maybe the guest could be a little bit more understanding, but the most challenging situation, that is the ones which helps us to learn. And, you know, we learn from those situations a lot, and, you know, and those are the most memorable moments and the most memorable guest who is the most challenging to us, you know, because at that moment it looks like really bad and nothing else going on in the world, and, you know, your personal life is getting affected by all of those. But then, you know, when you deal with that, you just had such a great personal reward. You don't even, like, no one even have to come and say for you that, oh, you did great or something. You just feel yourself rewarded of that. So that is like, how do you try to get, you know, a client and the guest satisfied, beside all, you know, all the operational and the technical processes, which we all follow, and, you know, like, I don't think I have to mention. Another thing for me is, you know, if the client is asking something, even if it's the most utopic request, never say no. It's always a yes. It's always a yes, I'm going to check it for you. It's always a yes, I'm going to find it for you. And, you know, sometimes you surprise yourself. You know, maybe yesterday I called for someone and looked for certain accommodation which looked impossible for me. No one had it. And then the client next morning comes to you, emails, can you just restart the search and see if there's something else? And you're normally like, oh, like you just look for that like 2 minutes ago, seems like 2 minutes ago. What can be changed within 24 hours? And you surprise yourself, maybe within those 24 hours, a new properties got listed, a new supplier got listed. So it's always about, motivating yourself, repeating and repeating and repeating. And, it doesn't matter how many times you do, and it doesn't matter how many times your client will ask you, you just go through that and do it. And
yeah, totally, because we always learn from the challenges and without even noticing sometimes. Yeah. And speaking of motivation, so what are some most rewarding aspects of working as a account manager, and what keeps you motivated in
So I think that, clients is this, I am like a very, like from personal life, sometimes it can be like a very negative aspect. I am very much of people's pleaser. Like, I feel so horrible if someone is not happy. I know that sometimes I don't look like that because I'm very direct and I just say, if someone is doing bad things, I'm not gonna wrap it in anything. I'm just gonna say as it is. But I feel always so bad, even in office, if I would sit and I see one of my colleagues is not happy or struggling with someone, sometimes it's challenging for me because I take out time out of my work and just go and help them out. But I don't think so I can really focus on something if I feel that someone is not happy. It's the same, if my client is not happy and I was able to make their day with, sorting out any issue or doing something for them, that is the most rewarding thing for me. So as I mentioned before, that spiritual self-rewarding is the most important, and that what makes you to grow.
Yeah, I totally understand. It sounds like you're really empathetic, and I guess that's what makes you a really good account manager as well.
Yeah, so it's as I mentioned before, it's always you have to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And, sometimes you ending up between two different kind of shoes, right? You ending up between being in the boots and in the high heels. And you have to kind of find the balance because, some different opinions and things, but it's always trying to put yourself in the suppliers, in the operations, in the accounts, and everyone else's shoes, and the clients. And, that transparency, just you need to understand one side, and then other side needs to understand other one, and just to find those, agreements, what is in the middle. And, it's just so beautiful sometimes the way how the agreements come up that none of the sides is been imagining that is going to happen. And then at the end, you feel like you help to be part of that, beautiful process.
Yeah, definitely, because self-satisfactory and accomplishment is the key to motivate us to achieve something in our workplace. Yeah, and so apart from dealing with client relationship, do you have any have you ever experienced any other challenges? Or you're just really good at your job?
No. I think it's I think my main struggle, and it's ongoing, and this is the reason why I keep on going back to this emotional bit, because that is a key, especially for the person, if you're as emotional as I am, and as direct as I am, and it's very difficult sometimes to go through the emotions. So yeah, like I said before, just learning. Just to give you example, when I started 6 years ago, I used to kind of try to put the fire off before passing that to the clients. If there's some issues going on something, I always used to try it to sort it out issues before I go to the client and say that there is an issue. And then I seen that at certain points those issues was building up, and when I would have to report that to the client, it would be such a big escalation already at that point. So then I was like, okay, no, I have to say for the clients straight away what's happening. And then I used to like fire things straight away without actually taking out that emotion. That didn't really work out now. So now where I'm standing is like, if this one, are we back? Yeah, we're back. So at the moment where I am, where I'm absorbing what the fire is and taking all this negative bit of the fire and delivering in the nicest way. So you don't hold on anything, but you don't put straight away everything out. You just deliver a fire in the most controlled and managed way. So your client has the assurance that everything is in control. Also, you don't put that stress and negativity on the operations or the suppliers or whoever deals with that. So you try to filter that through yourself, but don't keep it to yourself as well. Like, this is why sometimes it's important to go for a walk on your lunch break, or if you would come to our office, you probably would be seeing me with closed eyes and just sitting on the sofa, and that's like my 5 or 10 minutes meditation where it took time for me, just to that really don't care what's going on around me, what people thinks, or is he sleeping, or he's like doing something, or passing out, or he's like not feeling well. But it doesn't matter that, as long as you do your work and you know how to deal with your emotions or other bits to do your work better, it doesn't matter what you around things, because once you finish with dealing with that, you will come and you will spread all this happiness as much as you can.
Oh, I always thought you were taking a nap.
No, I'm not taking naps.
Oh.
I always would be with the headphones, so I would always have this high vibration music. You would also see me breathing and doing all the briefings just to keep me there. And sometimes it happens that if you have not that intense stay emotionally, you don't have to go there 3 or 4 times sitting down and doing that. Sometimes you just have to go and do it, because taking that 5 minutes out of your work is going to help you to increase your productivity for the next maybe 3 or 4 hours. So
yeah, totally. And so Ricardo, how long have you been working in the industry?
And so I started to work in the industry when I started to work at thesqua. So it's 6 years now. It's gonna be 6 years in May.
Oh wow! So look back to the COVID pandemic. So what do you think it's had impact on the industry, and does it make any changes to your role?
I think what we seen the biggest change after pandemic, that we taking every inquiry and every move very individually. Where before pandemic, we still would take booking and inquiry by booking and by inquiry. However, it was more of agreed services, and we would just go through that. Where after pandemic, we understood that every booking has the individual behind that. Just to start with, because during the pandemic, we've been locked, but we've been locked with our guests as well. A lot of people, they couldn't go back to their countries. A lot of people, when pandemic started, it was, they just didn't take anything from their apartments. They just take what they could and just run there. There was so many things going on that you would go, that you get connected with your guests in the way how you would never get connected before. And once you went through that connection with your guest, it is a very difficult thing to stop it now. So now more than never, every time you have inquiry or anything, you digging around, what their culture they're coming from, what they're interested in, are they, all this specific thing, what is you can make they stay better. So I think the biggest change is having a personalized stays rather than like, just brushing their bookings through. Another thing, what comes after COVID, I think, health and safety, which was a big part before as well, but then it was a very status quo, right? We have like what we working with, that's a health and safety, and that's it. And now we understood that all of those things can be changing like this, right? We just need one breaking news on the on the TV, and we have to turn everything upside down, and that is the thing which we learned from pandemic. And then again, I think the biggest thing is just to have more appreciation of every single booking, of every single call, of every single client. Sometimes before pandemic, you might take things for granted, and you knew that client would make certain amount of the business. If they don't make it, what we can do to change that. But now you're actually like really appreciating that. When pandemic just started, I remember it was so many cancellations. It was so, because before, like if you would have cancellation in your mind, you would be like, okay, so I can make a certain calls and just fill in those gaps with some other business. But when the pandemic started and you had all of this going through, you kind of, hold on, there's no one who I can call, because if I call someone, they might cancel what they have already. And you would be like, so again, like I remember during pandemic, there was like a month, I guess, or like there was a certain time, there was like no inquiries, no bookings. And then after a certain time, I got one booking, and I don't think so I've been happier in the years. When I got that booking, I remember I called, one of my managers, another of my managers, and I was like, oh my God, this is just so amazing. It was like the best day in the months, and and then when you think like before pandemic, if you would get a certain amount of the bookings, you're like, oh, that wasn't a great day. Well, like now, every single bit of business, it makes your day.
Yeah, exactly. I can totally understand, because like when I get like one of our videos got lots of views, I'm super excited and happy, and tells my colleague and my manager. Yeah. So having been working in the industry for 6 years, what advice would you give to someone who's interested in this career, or who just started?
I think the transparency is a big thing. You have, again, like as I mentioned before, you have to be always transparent with your clients. You have to be transparent to your team members. You have to be transparent with your partners. But what is the most important, I think, it's transparency with yourself. It's analyzing yourself, analyzing how do you develop yourself, analyzing how do you feel about the development, analyzing yourself, how do you feel about your future. Because, there are some people who always would blame someone else, and that's just a natural thing. You always try to take the blame out of yourself. And then you just see all these negative things around you. And it doesn't matter how many times you're going to change your job, so how many times, you're going to change your team members or managers, it will never help you until you actually going to learn what you need personally and what you feeling. So, every single issue, again, take it, is that a personal feeling that affects that issue, or it's actually a work issue? If that's a work issue, speak with your manager. How can you sort it? I feel like especially working in their corporate industry, people don't have that open conversation with the managers. I feel like I've been very lucky. Every single manager, I think I have 3 of them in this company, and every single manager, they've been very welcoming to me, and you know, they always would be open for conversation. So I never had to feel about like, can I speak with them, or they're not gonna like listen to me. I know that if with any of them I speak or spoke in the past, they will be there, they will support to me, and you know, they will give me advice, they will direct me to the right direction. And you know, if it's not something from their field, they always, you know, try to direct to the right person, if that would be HR, or that would be like some other team members. So it's always about understanding yourself, because that's the way how you can communicate, is to understand yourself and just communicate those things to the right people. And again, as I said, like, you know, just talk with your manager as much as possible, and you will see how many less issues you will have if you take them out at the right time, in the right way, to the right person.
Yes. And do you have any tips for people who are going through the interview stage?
I feel I don't know. It's like, again, I did in my last interview 6 years ago. It was a successful one. I don't know how the interviews is going on, because now I see like, you know, when I had interview, I met my future manager at that time, and one of my colleagues in the hotel, and we have like a 2 hours conversation, you know, about everything. How would you deal with this kind of things, and how would you deal with that kind of things? So I think at that moment when I had it, it was very important, because I didn't have that much of the experience in the industry or in that particular role. So what was very important for me at that moment, to apply my skills that I learned from the different jobs before, what I could bring into that particular role, right? I don't think so is always about the experience what you have is for that particular job. It's more of how can you use your experience from all the other jobs or personal lives and bring it up for this role. So that is always just to be flexible with your mind, that don't be focused like, you know, if someone will ask you on interview, how would you deal if there would be a leak in the apartment, or how would you deal with certain situations? Don't exactly think about that certain situation and did you have that or did you not have it. Think about how would you deal with that situation from the other situations that you have and you learn from them.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really important to be able to demonstrate your transferable skills, because I did the same during my interview as well. And how do you usually balance the needs and expectations of your clients with like operational and financial constraints?
You always, I don't know why I always say you. It's not a lecture. What I do with my clients and, you know, their needs, it's always reading them through or listening them through and do that without any judgment. So don't think that something is possible or what's not possible. Just listen them through, write it down and say, let me work on that. Whatever is asked, just let me to work on that. Then speak with your team member for whichever that request being directed to. Pass it through and see what they're going to say. You know, it can be yes, or it can be no, or it can be maybe. And then for me is what I take as a challenge and I always try to do. If someone from my team says no, I try to motivate them to say yes. Rather than I saying you have to do because I think like if you say for someone you have to do just because you have to do, they might do it, but they're not going to do that completely or, you know, like from themselves. They're just gonna do it just because they've been told. You know, I always can go to my manager and say like, oh, you know, someone from accounts is not agreeing to do X, Y, Z. Can you go to talk with their manager and force them to do it? But you don't want to receive those things through, you know, all these forces, right? You want to motivate, first of all, if you're going to motivate them or, educate about your client's needs, they're going to have that personal satisfaction, and they're definitely going to make you a better job for your client that, they've been for. So it's all about, going through motivation rather than through forces. And that's how you can deliver.
And so the last question. So what do you think the service department industry changed over the years, and what trends do you see emerging in the future?
So as I mentioned before, that we're taking the things now more personally. We're taking more every inquiry and every move more personally, rather than brushing in groups. We take, the big thing what's going on at the moment as well, and what's really happy to see about environment-friendly moves, environment-driven inquiries, when you're getting a new RFPs and things, that's what people is now interested about, and I think that is our future. Unless we're going to have some other impacts, which, we've seen like lots of the things which we coming back now, and then pandemic started, and then we kind of been dragged into that direction. So I think the environmental impact is one of the biggest thing that, we're going to be considering and working on in the future.
Insightful. Thank you. I think that's all of the questions we covered for today.
Okay.
So let's see if anyone have any questions. If not, we're gonna end the session soon, as we're a bit over time.
Surprise!
They're wondering if we have any openings, like job openings at the moment.
I'm sure that they're like when I speak with the HR or my managers, I think that's the thing. Just always send your CV. You always can go on our website. If you go on our website and you at the bottom of the page, there's a career. So you can press there. You can see all the openings where it works for you. Just send it the CVs to the HR, and she's constantly looking at them. And even maybe if we don't have opening something, and you have something, you still will put on file. You will be contacted. You will be seen, where that opening could come. So never be afraid to send your CV, and just if you think that you are right for that position, just make it happen.
Yeah, exactly. And you can go on our LinkedIn account, just search the Square Service Department, and then you will see all the job openings, and you can contact our hiring manager and send your CVs. They'll notice your messages, I think.
Yeah.